Umpire Magazine, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, in Team Season Preview 11 out of 32, I was joined by Houston Texans fan Graham Henderson. Graham discusses one draft pick he's particularly excited about.
Hayden McDonald, I think, was an absolute steal for us in the draft.
I ask Graham about CJ Stroud's disappointing 2025 season.
It was a really poor performance, and it led to many wondering about Stroud's future now.
And much more as Graham predicts the team's overall record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, and we are here for Team Season Preview 11 out of 32. And as you can see from the title of the episode, today's team is the Houston Texans. Now, before we begin, this podcast is sponsored by FantasyGameday.app. Use code Andy5 at checkout for money back off your first paid lineup. Now, with me, making a long overdue return to the show, back on the show today, is Texans fan Graham Henderson, otherwise known as the Kilted Texan. Graham, it's so good to have you back on.
Aye, thanks, Andy. Things have been a bit hectic for me, and I appreciate you sticking with me and wanting to come back and chat.
Well, you alluded to it there. Since you last came on the show, you've become a father. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Best thing ever. So, yeah, it takes up a lot of my time. I try and get around, and, when you ask me onto these things, I do my best to make the time for you, because I appreciate how much work you put in to doing these podcasts and stuff. So, yeah, I try and do my best for you.
Well, great having you back on. And, yeah, let's get talking all things Texans. So, in the 2026 off-season, I should say, you brought in the likes of Reed Blankenship, Braden Smith, Wyatt Teller, Logan Hall, Dominique Robinson, Foster Moreau, and Evan Brown. And then in the draft, you took the likes of Caden Rutledge, Georgia Tech offensive guard, 26th overall. You took defensive tackle Caden McDonald out of Ohio State, 36th overall, as well as Marlon Klein, tight end out of Michigan, 59th overall, as well as Fabichi Nawai in the 4th round, Wade Wooders in the 4th round, Kamari Ramsey, as well as 6 other players. And then leaving the team as well in the offseason includes the likes of Jimmy Ward, Joe Mixon, Mario Edwards, Tyrod Taylor, as well as Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Braxton Berrios, Christian Kirk, Harrison Bryant, Titus Howard, Juice Scruggs, DeMeco Autry, and Derek Barnett. Graham, for you, overall, what's your take been on your team's offseason?
It's been a busy one. Due to the end of last year, as we all seen, the Texans kind of pushed hard, floundered at the end. Some glaringly obvious things came back to haunt us. I would say the offensive line, as good as we had bolstered it, changes were made, positions were changed around, substitutions. It didn't quite have that power we are still looking for. And I think with this off-season, we have went out and we have got some very good veteran experience in there. Braden Smith and Wyatt Teller. I thought Wyatt Teller was a really good pickup. Moving on as well from like household names, and Titus Howard. He's been around the team since he was drafted. So big moves there. But these are the kind of cuts and changes you have to make. And again, I think the Texans are doing everything they can to put Stroud in the best position he can to lead this team forward. Defensively, I think we were already a very strong unit. And to add the likes of Reed Blankenship and players like Logan Hall, moving them around, just giving the depth in the positions. Caden McDonald, I think, was an absolute steal for us in the draft. He very highly praised. And some people, I think, during the draft said that How can the Texans have such a good defense and teams let that guy slip into this defense? So yeah, very busy. Looks like there could be some epic changes in there, but the proof will be in the pudding.
Yeah, and you mentioned Stroud. I mean, that is talking of proof being in the pudding. I mean, Stroud has a big year ahead of him because he is someone who, we all know what happened. Rookie year, came into the league, brilliant first year. Everyone was singing his praises. Wild card round win, I think it was against the Browns. There was a lot of hype around Stroud, and then kind of we saw a bit of a dip. And then last season we saw a real dip in his form, and I think we saw, particularly in the playoffs, him really struggle. You think about didn't play that well against the Steelers, but you got away with it, got the win. But then what we saw against the Patriots was a really disappointing performance. And it was, the defense did all they could. The defense held up the Patriots really well on offense. It was a low-scoring game. And Stroud, all he needed to do was just play it simple. And he made mistake after mistake, interception after interception. It was a really, really poor performance, and it's led to many wondering about Stroud's future. Now, you mentioned the offensive line, that is kind of equally to blame, but Stroud did have some worrying performances last season, and kind of as a Texans fan, I want to get your thoughts on that, because is he someone that you worry is on borrowed time, or do you think he's got enough in him to be there beyond 2026?
Yeah, this off-season will have been key for him. He'll have had to go and do a lot of soul searching. Seeing Will Anderson get the big deal, and him to be not given the deal this off-season, that'll hurt. But you're right. In that Patriots game, he was so poor, Rule ones, just take care of the football. And he really didn't do it. I think this is one of the biggest opportunities the Texans had to get to the Super Bowl. And they've been there or thereabout in some playoff chat before, but I really believe the Patriots had been there for the taking. I myself was screaming for the introduction of Davis Mills because I felt that Stroud's head was gone, the way he was giving up the ball. But I genuinely don't think DeMeco wanted to pull his guy. He wanted to stick with him and stick with the number one, but in these situations, it's about getting that W, and Stroud really has to. I don't know what he's going to have to do. He's just going to have to get back to the fundamentals of what made him so good in his rookie year. I'm not looking for the big comeback shootout wins like he had against Tampa Bay. I'm just wanting him to be very prudent with the ball, very safe with it, make the right decisions, get his timing back. He always seemed rushed last year a lot of the time. And I think he got the yips from the season before when he took so many hits. So yeah, I just think this year he just has to grow. This has to be his off season to grow. He's went out. He's obviously changed his style a wee bit. He's got the haircuts and everything, and he's just tried to re-image himself. And I think with doing that, he's trying to leave that guy in the past, and he's coming in this season as a new guy. We'll just have to see where he is.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that every quarterback has off years. And you can make an argument for different positions in the NFL, different sports, different athletes, whatever you want. I think everyone's entitled to a bad season. It's completely natural. You can have these off years. But I think if it's another off year, I think that's when it's really time to start panicking, because that would be. It's not as if he's making these performances in a team that's finishing with 7 wins. It's a team that is, defensive wise, arguably, if not the best defense in the entire NFL last season, and that defense deserved at least an AFC Championship for how well they performed in those playoffs, and particularly, in that game. They did all they could. Will Anderson did all he could in that game. But obviously, Stroud ended up being kind of the reason why they didn't go through. And you think about Sam Darnold and what he did. I don't think, I think for his Super Bowl win, I don't think he won that Super Bowl by being the best player on the field. I think you look at the defense, the running back room, that kind of as good as a story is. The Sam Darnold story is amazing. It's a great story. He did really well, but I don't think he was the reason they won the Super Bowl. So, and I think they proved in that year, in that championship winning season, that you don't need a top 5 quarterback to win a Super Bowl. You just need a guy who's competent, who's not going to make mistakes, who's not going to throw to the other team. And I think that's really what the Texans needed from Stroud. I don't think they needed him to do a Mahomes or do a Josh Allen. They needed him to just be competent. And if he'd just been a half as good as what he can be, that would have been probably enough to have beaten the Patriots that day. So Stroud has to learn a lot, and I'm hoping for his sake that he learned from that game against the Patriots and learned how to not give the ball away. I do think the AFC is open. I don't think it's the 1 year, and that's it. I can see as long as Stroud is competent this year, or at least semi-competent, the defense will win them games, the head coaching will win them games. And I think there's no kind of clear favourite in the AFC. The best 2 teams have got new head coaches. The Chiefs, who knows what they'll do this year? They're kind of a real could go one or the other. So yeah, I do think there's a spot open in the AFC for someone to try and grab it. So I think if the defense can play like they did last year and add in then Stroud being somewhat competent, as well as the O-line protecting him, playing well, that might be all the Texans need. That could be enough to see you go far in the postseason once again.
Yeah, I believe so as well. It's all open. Every team has its issues. It's just how you handle those issues. You're right about the Sam Darnold. I think Sam Darnold was part of what you would consider a really good team. There wasn't just one good unit on the team that carried them. I think that whole team come together. When the Texans played them last season, I generally thought at that time it was going to be the Colts in Seattle in the Super Bowl, just by how good the Colts started off. But Seattle, after we played them, I was saying to guys that I speak to, I was like, Seattle's definitely making the Super Bowl this year. They were just so much better than I had expected to see them play against us. So yeah, we need to find that full team unit. It's just we've been building a very good defensive unit. We just need everyone to play well. Our special teams usually plays consistently well. We just need that offense to find that other gear and really put the screw to some teams. That's what you want. You want your team to put the screw to somebody, keep the boot on their throat, just bury them and put them to bed. And we just lacked in that last year. So yeah, let's just hope that CJ Stroud can find himself a little bit better this year. And he needs a supporting act as well. He'll have some guys back. We need stronger play from our tight ends, and back to the offensive line. Let's just hope that this offseason we can get them to gel in the time that is required for them to gel, and we're not like still finding our feet 4 or 5 games into the season, because that can really hinder your run and your momentum.
Well, if they are going to have a team that gels, momentum going on their side, a lot of that will be down to the head coach, DeMeco Ryans. Now, he's been in the league 3 years as a head coach. His first job as a head coach is his current role with the Texans. And in 3 years, he's got to do to the postseason every year, and also in 2 of those 3 years, a division title. Now, for you, in terms of DeMeco Ryans, now, you must be very confident in this team whilst he's your head coach, because if you look at his career as a head coach so far, if you take away not making a Super Bowl, there's not much else he could have done in his first 3 years. It's been an incredible first role in the league in that role for DeMeco Ryans.
Yeah, he's been flying. We all knew that there was going to be a stir and a buzz when he come back to Houston. It's a team that very well grounded in, being a team captain and a linebacker. A lot of years spent there. But I think every year you see he kind of learns from his mistakes. There's been mistakes every season, and he moves on and he learns. Giving over the reins of the defensive coordinator was a big one. You know, he should really. I like when your head coach concentrates on just letting your coordinators work on it. Don't try and be the head coach and a certain coordinator. That works for some, but not for all. I think in our respect that he's brought together a very good defensive unit. He doesn't need to micromanage that. He can leave it to a defensive coordinator. I think this offseason we will hopefully see a more brutal DeMeco Ryans when it comes to making those really hard decisions, like I mentioned previously. Like, I really think he should have pulled CJ in the Patriots game. You know, no disrespect on CJ at all for doing that. It's the team that matters. You know, it's not one guy's feelings, you know. So I'm sure if he'd pulled him and it hadn't worked out, he would have got slated for pulling one of his best players. But if it had worked, he'd have been held in high regard that he made the right call. So it's making those key decisions. So I think this year we might see a more brutal, if it's not working, we go back to the well and we find what does work. Because if you look at it, when CJ went down, Mills come in, he righted the ship, he got us on that win streak, and we got going under him. Very capable. So I think we should have went back to the well on that. Very capable, very safe quarterback. So I think that's where we'll learn where the decisions will be a bit tougher from DeMeco this year. Yeah, definitely going forward. He wants to bring that first AFC Championship game at least to Houston. He wants to be that guy. You just know he wants to be that guy. You go down and you're already down in team folklore and history, but if you go another step by giving them that first AFC Championship game, and then you just take that game as it comes, then you're in the big dance. So yeah, there's a lot of upside still left in him.
I totally agree. I think you're right. I think you mentioned the kind of the battle scars he's had from certain things, and he's managed to recover. So I have faith in him. I do think it is probably an easier division than others, so that will help him be able to get back into the playoffs, you'd think, and potentially, you know, at least host or play in an AFC Championship. Because I do think, I think that there's a chance you could do it. I think everything has to go your way, like any team. But I do have faith. This is the team that could potentially do it. And speaking of which, let's head to our final segment, which is win, lose, or tie. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this segment of the show, every fan who comes on predicts their team's overall record by going through each game and answering with a simple answer of win, lose, or tie. Now, week one, wait a sec, I've just gone on to the wrong team. I know the show, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Give me a second. I think the wind has blown it away. I did have Houston Texans ready. So week one for the Texans is going to be, Bills in Houston at home. Graham, win, lose, or tie?
Win.
Okay. Week two, you're staying at home, but this time taking on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Win on the doubleheader for the opener.
Nice. Week three is your first divisional game, but also your first road game of the season as you host the Indianapolis Colts.
I can see the Colts tipping us there. We always find it very hard to play there, so I'm going to say loss.
Okay, so then week four, you are hosting in Houston the Battle of Texas, the Dallas Cowboys.
Win against the Cowboys.
Well, week five, you're sticking with the AFC South for two back-to-back games, both on the road, and the first one is in Nissan Stadium against the Titans.
I think we'll win on the road in Tennessee this year, and they'll probably take out their Oiler kit again, which is absolutely hinders them against us. So, yeah, that'll be a win.
So then week six, you are heading across the pond to the UK as you take on the Jacksonville Jaguars at Wembley Stadium.
Absolute repeat of 2019. Texans win on the road against the Jags.
that is a game I remember going to very well. I remember a certain quarterback we don't want to mention anymore having a great game on that day. Now, I know you are a father now, and your time is definitely very busy. So I don't know whether you are, but are you planning to go to that game in London?
Yeah, I've got my tickets. Yeah, I've got my tickets for that one. Unfortunately, the wee man can't get in because he's too young. So we'll make arrangements. But yeah, you'll see me in London. That is the plan anyway. Whether if you're sick of seeing me on Days and Tough Luck, you'll just have to put up with me for another weekend.
Well, hopefully I'll bump into you. I always remember bumping into you just by chance at a Houston Texans game in Houston. I remember we were going to meet before. That didn't happen. I can't think what the reason was now. I remember I was walking out the stadium. I do remember seeing a man in his kilts, and I thought, well, there's only one guy that could be in Houston. So, that was
Philadelphia game when we wore our Battle Red helmets for the first time. Mm-hmm. That was the game.
Yeah, I remember that, Regis. And I always remember the game because I do remember it was Philly against Houston in the game in NFL, but also the same night it was Philly against Houston in the World Series. And I do remember there were a lot of people watching it on their phones, the World Series. There were some people watching it in a bar rather than watching the game that was out there. That always sticks with me, just how the chances of having both that going on at the same time as the World Series, but also both games were going on in Houston as well. You think about in the UK, you never get, apart from London, more than one sporting event on the same time in the same city. So that bit always blew me away. When I think back to that trip, that always blew me away.
The tailgating after was wild because none of the stewards could get anyone to leave because everyone had the World Series on at their tailgate, so nobody would actually leave. So it's quite funny.
It's, good times, good memories. That was, believe it or not, that was 4 years ago, Graham.
Unbelievable.
That game. So that shows how quickly time flies. Speaking of flying, you're flying back to the States in week 7 before your week 8 bye as you host the New York Giants.
I think the Giants will turn us over in that one. I just think is Cam Scatterby back?
I don't know. I don't know at the moment. I know I saw his back clip. I don't know whether because I saw John Harbaugh saying he'll be ready for week 1, but I don't know whether anything's changed since that. I think
that Giants team's going to be well different with Harbaugh.
I agree.
There'll be a different creature. So yeah, not the Giants of the past few seasons. So I think that's going to be a tough one, especially after coming back from an overseas.
I agree. I like the Giants a lot, and I think they could generally, because it's such a strong division, I think they could generally finish third in that division, but with 10 or more wins. I think I can see the Eagles, Cowboys, and Giants all having double-digit wins, and I could even see a team like the Giants finishing third, having 10 wins and missing out in the playoffs altogether. So it's interesting year. That NFC East is going to be, I think, quite exciting this year. For week 9, you return from your bye and you take on in LA the Chargers.
This has been quite a close game in the last few years. I think the Chargers are going to finally have our number in that one.
Okay. Okay. So then week 10, you are staying on the road, but this time taking on the Cleveland Browns.
Win.
Yeah, that is fair. That is fair. Week 11, AFC South game once again, but this time you are taking on at home the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, we'll get that'll be the 1-1 in that tie, so we'll get the win there. Thursday night football.
Thursday night, yeah, Prime Video. 7:15 p.m. in the US. That'll be of course 1:15 if you are watching it in the UK. Week 12, you are staying at home, and this time you are taking on the Baltimore Ravens.
Texans win. Yeah.
Love that.
I think the Texans are going to show the AFC North something this year.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to play, you've got the Browns in week 10, you've got the Ravens, then you've got another AFC North team in week 13, you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers at Acrisure Stadium.
Yeah, when we'll go on the road and show them how we should have done it the last time.
Love it. Love it. Week 14 is a fellow team playing in London this year. You're on the road to the Washington Commanders.
When? Yeah, when.
Win. Okay, so then week 15, you are hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars.
When? Double header on the Jags.
Great stuff. Well, you've got back-to-back road games now, and they're very tough places to go. Starting off week 16, this is at Christmas Eve if you are listening in the US. But if you are listening to this podcast or watching it in the UK, midnight, 1 a.m. on Christmas morning against the Philadelphia Eagles at the Lincoln Financial Field.
When?
So week 17.
No. Sorry, that'll be a loss.
Week 17, you are playing your final road game of the regular season as you take a trip to Lambeau Field and take on the Packers.
Yeah, same again. It's the cold element. I'll be our undoing.
Well, that means you head on to week 18, back at home against the Tennessee Titans. Graham, for the final time this episode, win, lose, or tie.
Win.
Great. That means you are predicting a 12-5 record for the season.
Yeah.
So
right.
If you go 12-5, you make the playoffs, you'd assume, with 12 wins. How far are you predicting the team will go in the postseason?
I think this year we can go that at least one step further. I really hope we can go 2 steps further, but I want us to lock in number 1. I want us to lock in the number 1 seed. That's what's the biggest thing. If we can lock in the number 1 seed, that'll be key. All roads have to go through Houston.
I think 9 times out of 10, having that number 1 seed is really crucial. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last 5-6 years, maybe go back the last 10 years. I reckon if you look at, I've not got it on my record right now as to who had the number 1 seed each year, but I can guarantee it's 80% of teams who have the number 1 seed reach a Super Bowl. I think last year we saw obviously the Denver Broncos miss out, but I think if they were actually getting to play their starting quarterback in that AFC Championship, I think the Broncos might have won that game. So I think such a huge thing, and I think with your division you're in, that could really help you get an advantage on that number 1 seed because you look at the Bills. Okay, their division's a bit poor. That could help them win it, but the AFC North is incredibly tight, and the AFC West is the same thing. So I think between the AFC South winner and the AFC East winner, that for me might be the battle for the number 1 seed because I think both teams have got very mixed divisions. I think they got 2 good teams and 2 bad teams in both those divisions. So I think natural way in is probably trying to win those division games and trying to go for like a 5-1 or 6-0 record in that division. And I think if you can get that record in your division, I think that's going a long way to at least having the number 2 seed or even the 1 seed.
Yeah, I just fed up of going north in the depths of winter, and playing. And every time you find yourself having to go to Foxborough, you have to go through, M&T Bank, or you're going north. Every time you're going north. So if we can, I know teams will have a slightly better advantage playing inside, NRG soon to be Reliant Stadium again, but at least that's our comfort zone, and we're not having to play to someone else's comfort zone. If you get what I'm saying, like look at the game against New England last year. That really didn't suit us making any sort of a comeback. That's what New England are used to playing in. They train in that. They're just Kansas, all of them. They just. When you get into the depths of the playoffs and it's winter and you're up there, everyone has to deal with it. But these teams they're bred to play in it. When you're used to playing in an air-conditioned stadium with a roof and you don't have to even worry about the rain, there's key advantages there, and we need to take that advantage away from these teams and play to our strengths.
Yeah, that is so true, and I think you'll be probably hoping for a division win for the Chargers in the AFC West. You'll be hoping for teams like that to try and because think if you take on the Chargers on the road in the divisional round, being a hot place, that's probably you look at that game and think, okay, actually that's quite favourable. But there we are. That is the end of our Texans season preview. Graham, once again, huge thank you for coming on today.
No, thank you for having me on. Can I give one last shout out to the memory of Janice McNair, the First Lady of Houston Texans football, who sadly passed. Big key influence on her and Bob for bringing football back to Houston, and sad time losing her. Well respected, well loved women around Houston. So, yeah, sorry for the Texans' loss on that.
I second that. Yeah, it was such a great, influential person in this world, and what she did for that city, that had lost a team in the Oilers, and we all saw we all seen what happened when the Browns lost their team and how that impacts a kind of a community, and that's the thing. A lot of the time, it is community. Like you are a prime example of that. Having in-laws that live in Houston, you've built in really well into that Houston community, and I think that's what the NFL is so great at. And I think in a way you could argue, I hate to say this, it's better than football in that sense. I think football can be a bit too, as much as I love it, can be a bit too what's the word? Not territorial. What's the word? I can't think what it's called now. But it's a lot more aggressive, I want to say, or a bit more sort of as against you. Where I think with the community that NFL has, both fans get along, and you have sort of that community. It's a city. It's everyone buys into it, and whether it's buying the gold chains, whether it's buying the jerseys, buying the hats, buying the clothes, traveling the city, all that. And I think to be able to bring football back to a city like that, which is a big city, it's a great city as well, might I add. I think having that back, bringing back the NFL to Houston, I think she deserves a lot of credit for that. And yeah, it is. When I heard that news, I did think, that is a rather big loss and a sad one at that. But no, that is the end of the show. Thank you all for listening. For Team Season Preview 11 out of 32, I have been, as ever, your host today in Andy Davis, and our guest today in Graham Henderson, otherwise known as the Texan, I should say. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.